Hey, how y'all doing? I'm Dre P. Lotus Harris, and this is week 7 of Brandon Bill Institute. And today we're talking about sales systems and communication. All right, sales systems and communication. All right, so if you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to sell. You're gonna have to sell. You sell all the time. You sell to your customers. You sell to the investors. You sell to your team, you sell to your partners, you sell to your employees, your prospects, you sell all day long. So let's get comfortable with that first of all. If you want to be an entrepreneur, let's realize first of all, you are a salesperson. All right. As much as we don't like to think of ourselves as salespeople, that's what we are. The sooner that you accept that, the sooner you'll get closer to where you need to be. Okay. Break through the barrier, get out the comfort zone. We sell stuff. Okay. Sales psychology. I'm about to break this down. I'm about to break down sales psychology. All right, what is sales psychology? To be good at sales, you got to first have a sales psychology. So shift into a salesperson mind state. How should you be thinking as a salesperson? Are you walking around thinking, I got to pay my rent at the end of the week, so I need to make this sale? Is that how you're coming about it? Because if that's your psychology, then you're not going to make very many sales. Okay. So the first thing is like, what is your sales psychology? How do you even look at sales? Do you look at sales as a positive thing or a negative thing? Firstly, we want to look at sales as a positive thing. Why is sales a positive thing? Because you are diagnosing and solving a problem. Okay, so at the heart of sales, at the root of sales, you are diagnosing and solving a problem. That's why sales is a positive thing. Solving problems is a positive thing. You're serving others, you're helping others by solving their problem. But before you can solve the problem, you have to diagnose it. You can't properly solve a problem without diagnosing it. That's what doctors do. Doctors diagnose the problem. You go to the doctor to get the diagnosis because the doctor is going to examine you to find out what the problem is. So, sales is basically the process of selling is basically that examination that you're doing in order to diagnose the problem and then offer a solution, right? So that's the sales psychology. You're a problem solver. So when you're out here looking at yourself as a problem solver, now you don't have to worry about having a negative perception because you're here to solve problems. That's what you're here for. Don't get it mistaken. I'm here to solve problems. So as a salesperson, you show up to solve problems. And as an entrepreneur, you are a salesperson. You are a problem solver. So how do we do this? Identify the true problem. That's the first thing. Okay, identify the true problem. And you do that by asking questions. You see what I mean? You're asking questions. All right. When you go to the doctor, what do? They don't just start trying to give you pills when you come in there, right? When you come into the doctor, they don't just give you a prescription. The first thing they do, they ask you questions. How are you feeling any pain? Does it hurt here? Does it hurt when I do this? How much do you weigh? How tall are you? They ask you questions when you come in there. That's the first thing. In order to solve the problem, you have to identify the problem. Like if you walk into the doctor and he starts giving you foot medicine, but you came in there with a headache, that's not a very good doctor, right? So identify the problem by asking questions. Identify the problem in order to diagnose the problem. All right. So we've had the conversation. We've asked the questions. We've identified the problem. What's next? You want to clarify the cost of inaction. What is it going to cost them if they don't act now? What will it look like for them if they don't act now? What's going to happen with that problem if they don't act now? They need to understand it. That's how you develop the sense of urgency. That's how you help them understand the value in what you're offering. That's how you help them understand the problem that they're facing. That's how you look at the pain point and you focus in on the pain point, the actual problem. And people want to be relieved from pain. So let's make sure we clarify that if you don't make a move to solve this problem, I want to illustrate what it will look like for you, or I want you to visualize it in your mind. What will it look like for you if you don't act on this problem that you have, that we've identified? What will it look like for you if you don't act on this problem that we've identified? And that's the picture you want them to be able to paint in their mind without you painting it for them. Allow them to see what will life be like without the solution that you offer. Find ways to illustrate that. Clarify the cost of inaction. Create a sense of urgency, fear of missing out, and also reinforce the value. Okay, so that's what we do. We reinforce the value that we're offering by identifying the true problem, first of all, by asking questions. And then you clarify the cost of inaction. Like if you don't solve the problem, this is how it will be, or this is how it will stay, or this is how it will get worse. And then reinforce the value of what it is you're offering. Reinforce the fact that this is the solution. This is going to change how it's going to change your situation for the better, because what you're offering should change someone's situation for the better, because you've thought that through. You've came up with an offer that provides some type of transformation for people. Let's keep it pushing. I could go, there's, I can talk about sales all day. Okay, so then we got objection handling. I'm really running y'all through sales right now because this is, man, sales. We could talk about this all day long. I'm telling y'all, and we will. We're going to expand on this more, but I got to give y'all some good basics to run with. So, objection handling. So much I can say about this, but be prepared to hear no. Like, people are going to say no. And that's what an objection is. An objection is when people say no. But handle it, get used to it, get comfortable with it, and understand that every objection is not necessarily a no. Like we have whole lessons on that, but every objection is not necessarily a no. Okay, let's talk about some common objections. So price, timing, what else? What's another good one? Trust. All right. So we got price, timing, and trust. All right. So those are the three common objections we're going to look at right now. And we're going to try to figure out how do you overcome these objections. All right. So you have someone saying the price is too high. All right. So how do you overcome a price objection? Is not a no. A price objection is just a concern. So let's address the concern about price. Okay, your price is too high. It's more than what the other guy charges. Okay, that's not an objection. That's an objection, but it's not a no. So how do we respond to that? If you're willing to pay, are you willing to pay more for something that provides more value? Are you willing to pay more for something that is premium quality? Like, do you like quality? Is that something that you value? Because we are at the price point that we're at because of the value that we provide. These are the things that you're getting from us that you won't get from your competitor. What type of experiences have you had with the competitor? Tell me about it and let me explain why you'll have a better experience with us. And then maybe I will help you understand why our price point is higher than our competitors. And if you're a person who values quality and customer service and efficiency, then our price will make sense to you. All right. Timing. This might not be a good time. I got to think about it. I got to talk to my wife. I got to talk to my spouse. I got to talk to somebody. Okay, so there's so many different reasons why the time you're making the offer might not be the right time. That's okay, and it's not a no. They're just saying it's not a good time. And if they get down to these objections, you got to understand that it was some type of question or some type of concern that you didn't address in the front end. Like you didn't ask enough questions in the front end, because if you get through your whole presentation and they still have these objections, that means you didn't fully handle these objections during your presentation. So that's what you need to be thinking about. Like in your presentation, in your pitch, when you're talking to the customer, you want to make sure that you're handling common objections that you get. That way, when you get to the point where you're ready to close, you're not dealing with these objections at that point. So timing. If they say they have to talk to someone, it's like basically at that point you you challenge their intelligence in a way. It's like, does the person you need to talk to, do they trust that you make good decisions? I'm sure they trust you make good decisions. And I don't think that they would want you to miss out on this opportunity right now to talk to them. Like, I feel like they would be more happy if they knew that you made a choice and it was for the better than to know that you missed out on an opportunity, something like that. But don't just take it as a no and say, I need to talk to somebody, and then you're like, okay, we'll go talk to somebody, hit me back. Objections are objections, but they're not necessarily a no. Okay. Trust. Now, trust is a big thing. That's a big objection because they won't really say the price is too high. They won't say I need to talk to my wife. They'll say something like, just give me some more information and I'll get back to you. Right? Just leave me your card, leave me a flyer, and I'll get back to you. Right? So that's just because they don't trust you right now. And the reason they don't trust you is because in your presentation, you didn't ask enough questions to get enough information to solve enough problems or to take care of enough concerns before you got down to the close. So now you're trying to close and they don't trust you yet. So I need a flyer. I need you to leave me with some information and I'll get back to you. Or don't call me, I'll call you type of situation. That's just because they don't trust you. So how do you establish trust after you've already like tried to close and they already don't trust you? At that point, I would say maybe how you can handle that. Just a suggestion, because there's probably thousands of different ways to handle all these objections. I'm just off the top of my head trying to give you a different way to look at it versus thinking it's just a no. Okay, so if they don't trust you, there's ways to build trust, but you really should build trust during the presentation. You should build trust like when you're talking to them and when you're asking questions. You should come off as being genuine and an expert at what you do. You got to have that expertise when you're talking because then they'll trust you. They'll trust that you know what you're doing. If you come off as not really knowing what you're talking about or not confident in what you're talking about, then that's another reason why they might not trust you. So the presentation has to be strong. You got to be confident enough for them to trust that you at least know what you're talking about, that you could deliver on what you're talking about. So if you haven't developed the trust you need, and by the end they don't trust you, you can try to reinforce the value, try to reinforce your expertise, but don't do it in a way that where you're like over explaining. You can still use fear of loss in that moment. If they're saying, I don't know, I just need to think about it. Well, were there any are there any questions that I can talk to you about today? Or just curious, is there anything that I can help you out with? Any concerns I can still address that might help you when you're considering making this decision? Or are there any more questions that I can answer that can help you with the decision process? So at that point, you kind of just trying to figure out, is there another way I can earn your trust before I have to walk away right now? That's basically what it is. So my thing is handle these objections before you even make try to close the deal. Handle these in the presentation, and not just these. I mean, handle all of them. And it might not be none of these objections. The person you're talking to, they might not have any of these. It might be a completely different objection. So how do you know what the objections are? You ask questions in the beginning. You ask questions while you're doing your presentation. You want to find out what objections this person might have. You need to figure that out. That's your job, right? You're a problem solver. You can't solve the problem without really figuring out what the problem is. You have to have a genuine concern about this person's problem. If you don't have a genuine concern about their problem, then you probably shouldn't be selling to them. Just to be honest, you shouldn't be selling. You shouldn't sell a product unless you are genuinely concerned about the problem that it solves. All right, we're gonna keep that there. That was it. We moving through. We moving through. All right, moving right along. All right, so right now we're gonna talk about confidence transfer. Okay, so confidence transfer, real quick. That's just basically you have to have the confidence in what you're selling first. And then that confidence transfers to the prospect or the customer. That confidence will transfer to them. If you have the confidence, it transfers to them. So when we're talking about the whole presentation coming up to closing the deal, we're going to talk about how that confidence transfers from you to them. Okay. So the very first thing is building rapport. So that's like, what I'm saying, greeting, you can say small talk. You want to do that first. You want to build rapport. Find some commonalities. Find conversation starters. Something to talk about outside of the sales presentation. This is you build rapport before you start the sales presentation. So we're not even asking questions about like their problems yet. You're building rapport just by having that good small conversation. You gotta learn how to be good with small talk. I know a lot of people don't like small talk. A lot of people like to get straight to the point. But if you figure out a way to build that rapport in the front end, then it will make the sales presentation easier and then more likely to get a close at the end. So build rapport. Okay. And then as you build rapport, then you kind of get into the sales presentation now, but you're just trying to identify the problem or pain. I'm gonna say identify pain points. All right, so you want to identify the pain points. So how do you identify the pain points? You asking questions. You always start by asking questions that have to do with the common things that you know people are dealing with. So you're just trying to uncover what common problem do you have, or can I tell you about my experience, and maybe I can get you to tell me about your experience. I need to identify your pain points. I need to because that is my point of communication. I need to know what your problem is. I need to know what you struggle with. That's why the communication is key because if you can't figure out what their pain point is, if you can't figure out what their problem is, then it's very hard to come up with the right solution. So, number three, explore desired outcomes. So, now this is good because you're still not selling per se. You're not closing a sale, okay? You've identified some pain points, at least one, but maybe two or three different pain points, two or three different problems they're having that you know your product or service can solve. Once you've identified those pain points that you know your problem, you know that your product or service can solve, now you're ready to explore desired outcomes. So now it's like you're dealing with this problem. What would it be like to solve this problem? What would it be like if that problem went away? What would it be like if we had an easy way to solve that problem? Is that something that you would be interested in? An easy way to solve that problem. So let's explore desired outcomes. Okay, so if you're willing to explore desired outcomes, which would be solutions to pain points that you've already identified because we built rapport already, then that means you are now ready to present a solution. At that point, you present a solution. So this is your presentation. Okay. At this point, you present a solution. That's where your presentation starts. That's when you get to running down how your product or service is going to solve their problem or eliminate their pain. And you're going to be razor sharp at this point. Because why? You already built rapport with this person. You've already identified their pain points. You identified their problems. You've explored desired outcomes, which means you've already painted a picture in their mind of desired outcomes. And now you just kind of presenting the solution that you guys that you've already illustrated in their mind. Like they basically already bought it. So you're presenting the solution that together you both have already came up with. And now you just have to present that solution to them nice and wrapped up in a gift to make it easy for them to consume. So now that you have basically presented the solution that they need to reach their desired outcome, now it's time to close. Okay. And that's what I mean. Like, if you've done everything right before the close, it should close itself. If you did everything else right, the close, it should not be the hardest part. If the close is the hardest part, then that means you didn't do this part right. The close should be so smooth and simple and easy. It should be pretty much just a matter of, okay, sign here. That's what the close should be if you did everything else right. Now, if you have objections during your close, you did something wrong because if there were objections, you should have never even made it to the close. If you had objections, you're supposed to identify those up here when you're having a conversation about their pain points. And then when you're starting to explore desired outcomes, that's when you digging for objections there. Okay. You digging for every objection until there's no more objections left. Then you present a solution. And then once you've presented the solution that's based on what they've already told you, the close should close itself if you do this right. Now, I'm not trying to say it's easy. It's not easy to do this stuff right. It takes a lot of practice, and it takes an understanding of having this these steps down, like to having a system down and having a sales psychology. And this week is that's what we're doing. I'm literally trying to, if you're not already, if you don't already have a sales psychology, the purpose of this week is to transition your mind to have a sales psychology. So you have to study this kind of stuff and practice it. Practicing this stuff will make you an expert in sales if you just practice it enough. And you know you're getting good when these closes become so easy that you don't really have to do anything. The close should close itself. Like they should be asking you for the pen and the paper. Where do I sign? That's where that comes from. When people say, "Where do I sign?" That's like that means because I sold it to you so well that you're asking me where to sign. So that's where I want to get y'all at. And that is sales systems and communication. Yes. There's more to this though, but this is going to get you going. I will dive deeper into sales systems and communication, but this is the 101 of it. This is the basics of it. This is what will get you at least into the sales psychology. And then we can dive deeper into the actual strategies and tactics and real conversation pieces, and a lot more examples of objections and ways to overcome objections. But this is just the basics. And if you understand this, then you understand sales and you have a sales psychology once this is understood and you can do this well. And by the time you're done with the assignment this week, you'll have this down pat. And we're going to make sure you do during the live stream. So tune into that. And then also make sure you get the assignment done and let me know if you have any questions. All righty. Y'all have a good one.